All right. We are here for our April Well-Being Wednesday here in 2023. Hope that everybody in the state or out of the state is staying safe in the weather. Definitely safety is important. So for those of you who this is your very first time kind of tuning into a Wellbeing Wednesday, welcome. This is a monthly segment that we do that shows childcare providers and caregivers like yourselves simple ways to support your own well-being, because taking care of ourselves is in fact taking care of others. Whether you're an early childhood educator, a director, a parent, or someone who just feels like a parent, you're sure to pick up tidbits of actionable advice on how to support your overall wellness and well-being and get back to feeling like yourself. I'm your host, Susanna Creed, with Be Well, Care Well, Arkansas, a Curricula Concepts program that's all about supporting the well-being of our childcare providers as well as caregivers overall. So with the weather being as it is, we're going to talk about being outside. So we're going to see as the weather hopefully starts to warm up and calm down. This is hopefully a great time to focus on one of our 8 dimensions, which is the environmental wellness. So in our conversation today, we'll be talking about ways to incorporate nature, outside time into your days a little bit more. This may be on your own or with your family or with the kiddos you serve. Nature is for everybody. So today we have Miss Chelcey Harrington here, who is a licensed occupational therapy assistant and has had several years of experience working in pediatrics. In her coaching, she also specializes in helping children and families incorporate more play and time in nature into their everyday lives. So I couldn't think of a better person to have on our Wellbeing Wednesday for April. So thank you again, Chelcey, for setting aside time and being here with us. Also, I didn't tell you in our chat before, love your shirt, drink coffee, go outside. Yes, you're speaking my language. So I think we'll probably just jump into our conversation. We have this whole month that's kind of focused on environmental wellness. I'd love to hear your opinion and kind of your expertise of why nature? Like, why does it matter? Why is it important to us?
Susanna, thank you for having me on. And I love this Wellbeing Wednesday. I think this is so great. So I just wanted to say that. And I love this topic. I love this question because I like to remind people as grown-ups, as adults, we sometimes forget we are nature. So anytime that we spend out in nature is going to have benefits to us on every level. We know that there's so many psychological benefits of being out in nature. One of the coolest studies that has come out in recent years is that people were shown a picture of a green space. So they were inside and they were shown a picture of a green space and a picture of like a building. And on a physiological level, they actually had a improved stress response to just looking at a picture of nature. And so if that tells you anything, it just shows. So being out in nature is going to have so many benefits. It can improve our mood and it decreases our stress, which working with little ones, we really need to find ways to incorporate that throughout our day to help take care of ourselves. So, and just reminding ourselves that we are nature. We were designed to be a part of nature. We aren't separate from nature. And that's sometimes just a good reminder to remember that we were designed to be out in it. So, of course, we're going to have a lot of benefits with that. So
that's really awesome. I haven't heard that in the sense of just looking at nature. Again, we kind of can guess, but having the research prove that. And also it's interesting. It makes me think about now, given a lot of these are very cheesy, but maybe there was something to having those like nature posters, where it's like a cat holding on with like mountains in the background and it's like, keep going, and something like that, or like a bear and a salmon and it says perseverance. Maybe the words themselves weren't so helpful, but maybe the images were, and that was, they actually maybe had a benefit. I think especially for a lot of our educators, they do get outside time, but even just the idea of putting up more nature pictures in their offices or in their classrooms or at home, it does have a positive effect to surround ourselves with that. And I love that you hit on that too, because yes, we have the great outdoors, but environmental wellness is also just whatever space we occupy. So
Absolutely.
even doing that is improving our environmental wellness. What are we surrounding ourselves with? So I really love that. I love that you hit on it. And also for anybody who's watching, if you have questions, if you have comments, please feel free to put those in the chat. I will be watching those and I'll be sharing them. And if there's any questions, we can talk about that here as well. So I know that we are in the natural state. However, nature doesn't always agree with everybody, or everybody doesn't always agree with nature, right? Like, I know I am horribly afraid of wasps and hornets, even though I know they're more afraid of me. Some people really don't like how humid it gets, and it's like, I don't want to go outside at all. So for those of us who maybe struggle a little bit in our relationship with nature and how to get outside when we're not really a big fan of some of the things about it, how can we still connect with nature in a way that works for us, but also, like you said, gets all those wonderful benefits and helps us connect?
Those are great questions. It's the same questions that I sometimes get working with kids. It's like thinking about, well, how do I help them, if they're scared of bugs and things like that. And I think it's important to always go back to your why and understand that we really, all of us need nature every single day. Knowing that it gives us benefits, knowing that it's going to be something that helps us, can kind of help us be more resilient in and of that. Also, we can take steps to help ourselves as well. I always recommend, bugs are one thing, sometimes people, it's spiders, or like you said, wasps. One of the things that I feel like really helps people is actually researching what that bug does for our ecosystem, and if it actually is something that's going to harm us. I think sometimes we have this idea based off like our childhood or just, societal things where we kind of give bugs a bad rap, and we haven't taken the time to really unpack, like, wait a second, like, here's a great example. We were at our house yesterday and there's this hovering giant bumblebee. We weren't sure if it was a bumblebee or a carpenter bee, but it had been hanging out by our basketball court and it was being very territorial. And, we've raised our son to not be scared of bugs. And so he wasn't scared, but we were all kind of like, okay, dude, like whatever, we're not going to hurt you, but like, why are you being so territorial? And it was just really interesting. And so I actually took the time to look it up. And this time of year is mating season it's time for mating for the bees. And so if you see one that's kind of acting strange like that, because, usually bees are busy doing things, it's probably a male, and it has picked that spot as its territory, and the male ones don't sting. They can't harm you. And so it was one of those things where I was like, this is why it's helpful to kind of look up, okay, what is it that's actually, scaring me and preventing me? Because it can be something that really prevents people from getting out. Take the time to research, like, what is it? Is this actually going to harm me? And also, what is its purpose in our ecosystem? Because there's a purpose for all of the bugs. They all do something beneficial to something, and most of the time they're not going to be hurting us if we're not hurting them. And so I think it's worth taking the time to see. And then you have this like appreciation and this kind of awe again that helps you it kind of takes that fear out, because you're like, oh, there's a purpose for you. It's not to harm me. You're just doing what you need to do, and then I know some people, the humidity, it can be very oppressive here in Arkansas, especially, or, it rained today and people that have sensory issues or just don't feel like getting out in it. I always recommend, I keep some stuff in my car. I keep like a little bag of just an extra change of clothes, whatever you think will help you be more comfortable. Like take care of yourself and support yourself. It's okay if you don't like getting sweaty, but support yourself. Like bring a towel with you or have a towel in your car. You know, some extra water, bug spray, sunscreen. That way, if it's the sun pops out on your lunch break, and like I'm light skinned, so one of the things for me is I need to have sunscreen on my neck or I can't be out in it at all. I will burn instantly, you know. And so I have sunscreen and I just always put it on the back of my neck and on my arms. That way I can take advantage of that beautiful sunny time, even if it's just for 30 minutes and I'm not worried about getting burnt. And sometimes I'll just go ahead and put it on in the morning, put on sunscreen, because I know that that's just an example of how I support myself with light skin. But it could be anything, you know, being sweaty or worried about getting dirty or whatever it is.
Yeah, I do love that though. And what's interesting, so like part of our program, we have well-being coaches that work with different childcare sites and different individuals. And so I know last year for getting outside, we brought some sunglasses, we brought some sunscreen, we brought cooling towels, you know, but I like the idea of kind of having that all in a kit that you have with you. So if you need, like maybe, I don't know, there's like a 99-cent poncho that you just have in there so that,
that.
Out, you know, having sunscreen, having that cooling towel, having like a quick wet wipe in there, almost like an outside go kit.
And I love that. And that could almost be like seasonal. Like you could have seasonal items because we do have the seasons here in Arkansas. So like in the springtime, it would be smart to have a change of clothes because of like mud and puddles and the poncho, like you said.
And tissue and sunscreen. The allergies.
Yes, and the bug spray. And yeah, I love that's a great idea. And then you have supported yourself in like getting out whenever you can. Because even just a little bit of time, of intentional time, is going to give yourself benefits. So supporting yourself to do that, I think that's a great idea. And it can just live in your car or live in your office or in your workspace or whatever. It's a really good idea.
Yeah, I'm like, because then you would need about maybe 4 a year, and you might not need it at all, but it's like travel size, you know, it's maybe like this big, and you have a summer one, spring, winter, fall, you know. And it's funny because I'm like a cat, right? I hate getting wet.
Yeah.
What's weird though is I dislike umbrellas because I feel like honestly I get more wet getting the umbrella open and closed than I would otherwise. And so I actually lived in Ecuador for about 2 months, and it was the rainy season. Yeah, which this cat, you're like, how are you possibly going to survive when it's raining every 5 seconds, but then sometimes it's really sunny? But what helped was kind of what helped mentally me be okay with it was having that preparation kind of. So most of the time I wore either higher boots or I wore waterproof shoes. So if it did rain, I was already good to go. I always had my raincoat with me. I always had something that I could cover my backpack with if I needed to that day. Or I knew like, okay, if I'm going out this far, I might come back and it's going to be pouring rain. Am I okay with that? I'm okay with that. I think it's a short distance. Like having pieces of preparation and also shifting my mindset of accepting that, you know, was really big of just like, I'm probably going to get wet and I'm just going to accept it. It's part of it. It's okay, you know? So I can even say from experience about that. And honestly, I love what you shared about the why in 2 ways. The why of why did I want to get outside to begin with? You know, because for me, I get really scared about spiders and biting things and wasps and bees. Irrational, but like I do, but I want to go rock climbing or I want to do camping more sometime, you know, and get better at it. And that why big enough to kind of overcome those things. And also what you said about the bees, it's like, okay, if I see, you know, a bumble or carpenter bee that's acting more erratic, that's actually probably the one that I don't have to worry about actively stinging me. It's just going to
Yeah.
get in my face, which makes me think a lot of times about nature, where it's like if something is bigger, that tends to be its defense, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
the small ones that are venomous or that bite because they're not as
Mm-hmm.
big.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if I see a calm bee, I don't need to be afraid necessarily, but let me leave it alone, you know?
Uh-huh.
But if it's aggressive, I don't
Mm-hmm.
have to, I can still be calm and say, okay, it's doing its thing, and this is probably not going to be the one to sting me. Now, wasps, I would need to do some more research because I think they're a little different. But just like what you said of, why are they doing this, and
Mm-hmm.
looking that up, and that does kind of take away some of the fear and some of our misconceptions. When
Yeah.
I bring up nature to people, a lot of times I think they think I'm saying that they need to become a weekend warrior and like go camping. And I'm like, you can go glamping. You can go for a 30-minute walk. You can go for a walk around your building. And that's nature time. Like it doesn't have to be this
Yes.
one size fits all, and it doesn't have to be all or nothing, which I think is
Yes.
what I heard from you about, like, it doesn't have to be this big thing that we do. It
That's
can be
one.
incorporated.
Yes. And that was one of the things that I really wanted to hit on today is exactly what you just said. Like our society tends to think of things in all or nothing. They want us to be all or nothing. We as consumers, we need to be all or nothing, right?
Yeah.
But we do not have to be all or nothing at all when it comes to nature. Incorporating nature in your everyday life can be as simple as you want it to be or need it to be in whatever season of life that you're in. Um, Camping is a great goal if that's something that you genuinely want to do. But simply taking a walk outside, like taking a phone call outside,
Oh, that's
getting,
how I get my outside time in and my
yeah,
steps in, as I take a phone call.
yeah, like say I'm going to take a walk every day in nature. Maybe that could be a good goal, like even if it's just a few minutes. That could be taking a phone call, that could be walking a dog, that could be a family walk after dinner. One of the ways, we tend to think about it moving outside, which coincidentally, like when we're outside in nature, we do tend to move more, which is nice, but we can also like eat meals outside. I love like the idea of like as soon as it starts warming up before it gets too hot. My son's always been an early riser. We will bring our breakfast outside a lot, or dinner. Uh, if you're in a busy work day and you have a spot at work, I know usually in childcare centers, there's maybe like one picnic table or there may be an area close by that you can eat your lunch outside. So you're getting that benefit of just being out in nature and you're taking care of yourself. But I love Katie Bowman is one of my favorite. She's actually in movement, but she's all about nature and she calls it stacking. So when you're taking a phone call and you're walking and you're out in nature, you're doing three things for yourself. We just live in a busy world and we're all busy.
Mhm.
So you kind of have to think about how can I maximize what I'm already doing? I'm already going to be eating breakfast or I'm going to be eating lunch or I'm going to be eating dinner. Could I do that outside? Um, Kind of a thing. So you're getting more things done. You're getting more benefits for yourself in the span of one busy day. Um, and I think those are really things that people can start thinking about doing that are doable and be thinking about at work, like where is a spot that I could eat lunch? If there isn't one, could we talk about getting something brought in where we could have a spot to eat outside or whatever it may be. I think it's
Yeah,
worth it.
absolutely. And so many of the things that you hit on align with what we do. Some of our programs that we've worked with, I know some of our coaches have helped them create outdoor staff spots. So maybe they get some
I love
picnic benches and they get like an umbrella covering, or maybe they just clean up, the benches that they already have.
that.
a lot of them have done inside, places or inside kind of meditation spaces, or at least calming spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And they've requested to bring nature in, whether it's through plants or, images of nature. Sometimes even fake plants, kind of like what you said about, the image. It's like, even
Yep.
if you're like, I kill everything I try to make live. Like if I try to grow
Mm-hmm.
anything instead, okay, get a fake plant, trick your
Yep.
mind. Like your mind's not
Yep.
going to really know the difference, and it's going to do something, And so for any of
Yes.
those who are watching now or watching the replay, if you're in Be Well, Care Well, talk to your coach and see if they can maybe help you work out a small outdoor space. Even if you already have an indoor one, see if there's like, okay, what can we use? Like, what do we have that we can use to create this space, or how can we clear up this space, or how can we actually make it something we want to go and use, especially
Mm-hmm.
as it's starting to, well, today it's rainy, but as it's starting to get warmer, hopefully. And we
Yeah.
also definitely believe on the trying to get in as many wellness things into one. And so what you talked
Mm-hmm.
about, talking on the phone while taking a walk, for us in regard to like the 8 dimensions of wellness, that's building your social wellness because you're connecting with somebody else, your physical wellness because you're taking those steps, your environmental
Mm-hmm.
wellness because you're getting out of your typical environment, and also
Yeah.
your emotional and kind of intellectual by talking with somebody as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just amazing how sometimes one simple thing can really hit on so many areas, especially for wellness. And you probably get it with nature. It's like, I don't have time. I don't have the time or
Mm-hmm.
energy. But again, that's because we think in the all or nothing.
Yes.
And it's ironic me saying that because I'm definitely an all or nothing person in my personal life. I'm like, it's either this or this, which is something I'm working on,
Yes.
because there's a beautiful gray area in between that's
Mm-hmm.
way less time consuming, and it feels like there's less weight because it doesn't have to
Right.
be everything, and it doesn't have to be nothing, and
Well,
that's where we talk
yeah,
about those small wins, right? Those small steps stacking, like you said, even just little
exactly.
bits. Mm-hmm.
And I think since the pandemic, especially, there's been this huge, I don't know, social media is social media, but, like all these like families that are like doing all this cool stuff outside. And it's like they're getting 1,000, like 10,000 hours. And I love is it 10,000 or 1,000 hours outside? I love that
Oh, yeah,
idea.
yeah,
I think it's great, but it's another one of those things that I've noticed people are taking all or nothing, and they're feeling like, oh, well, I can't do all those cool things that they're doing. And I'm afraid that it's making people feel like, oh, well, then I guess I just won't do any, or what I'm doing is not enough, or what I'm doing doesn't matter. And we just have to be really, really careful about that mindset and comparing what our lives and look like. And this goes with everything, but talking
mm-hmm.
about nature specifically, we really have to not compare and to do what we can do, and that will improve and get better, and it'll lead into others, it'll lead into other habits that I think are going to be, long-term sustainable for a family. And you can make little goals with your family, like figure out what it is, you know, what people's priorities are. What is it that could y'all do a family walk a couple times a week, or can we do one meal outside a week? Start with that and then build your way up. So just don't fall into the trap of like comparing, and because it's your journey, it's the benefits are for you, and nature's for everybody. Like you said, like we're not going to take nature and make it a competition. We're not. And we live in the natural state. I know there might be other people watching this later now that are from out of state, but we're so lucky that we have all of these spaces. So it's a little bit easier for us to kind of get in that time, just because we have access to so much green spaces here.
Yeah.
So taking advantage of that and knowing that, you can just, and bringing the greenery in was one of my other things I was going to say. Yeah, bring it in. If you bring it inside, like,
I have
the
my
flowers.
little I don't know
Yeah.
if you can see it, but my little
I see
fake
it.
plant. I have some real
Yeah.
ones, but I have some fake ones because I'm like,
Mhm.
all right, they look pretty. They're not going to die. They just stay there.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It really does make a difference on like a cellular level just by
Mhm.
looking at it, being around it. And if it makes you feel happy, makes you feel joyful, then listen to that, and bring in more of that. Try to get more of that.
Yeah, for sure. And, even like for myself, like I'm a well-being coach. That doesn't mean that I'm practicing everything 100% all the time. Like I've gotten really kind of stuck in my home environmental space and kind of getting that perfect. And
Mhm.
I've realized I've been doing that. And so for instance, this month, I'm like, I'm going to go on at least one hike this month.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
that might not seem like enough to some people, but for me, I'm like, that makes it doable.
Yeah.
That makes it doable. And that's the important part. Because if
Yep.
I try to do every single state in the state park passport, which if you don't know about it, you can go to your local Arkansas State Park. And basically at any other visitor centers, you can ask for a state park passport. And it's a really fun thing to do on your own or with your family. But again, even with that, you don't have to do all or nothing.
Mhm.
Like I've had mine for over a year and I have maybe 2 stamps.
Mhm.
Cool. That's 2 stamps I
Mhm.
got and I felt fun. And I was like, oh, I got a stamp when I did this.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't have
Mhm.
to do all of that this month. I can say, I'm going to go on one hike. That'll be one more hike than I did last month.
Yep.
So it's the little things like that that just make
Mhm.
it more doable and make it actually something we can live with and live by.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
all of those interesting things for sure. Um, and actually, the time always goes by so fast.
It does.
Um, so before we close, I want to see, Chelcey, do you have any final thoughts or anything that you want to share with us before we kind of get ready to sign off?
I just want to say thanks for having me on. And I just think in whatever capacity you can do it, get out there, just get outside and just see, just have an open heart and an open mind and definitely let your kids get out there too for sure and let them experience nature because it's got so many benefits for them too.
Yeah, right. It's good for the whole family.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it tires them out. And then, you can have some more adult time. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
win-win really across the
Mm-hmm.
board.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Chelcey, for taking this time out of your day to just share these awesome ways that we can get out into nature in a way
Hmm.
that feels doable and feels right for us. So I've definitely enjoyed this. For those of you who are watching the replay or are watching now, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I've also made sure to share Chelcey's information if you want to learn more about her or if you want to learn more about her coaching that she provides. That information is also in the comments. So if you're not already, also as we go to close, please make sure to follow Curricula Concepts on Facebook and Instagram so you don't miss a thing. That's where we post when our next Wellbeing Wednesday will be. And if you like today's show, please feel free to share it with your friends, family, coworkers, send a carrier pigeon, whatever works for you. And if you are a childcare provider and want to learn more about enrolling in Be Well, Care Well, where we talk about environmental wellness and help you build in wellness into your childcare programs and with your staff, please feel free to check out the link down below in the comments, and we'll be able to kind of connect you and we'll be able to work with you and help you do that as well. So this has been another Wellbeing Wednesday. I'm your host, Susanna Creed, wishing you well until next month. Bye, y'all.